Hi, everybody. My name is Walter Oczynski, and I would like to discuss today the incredible Excel Lambda and American pricing in one cell. To calculate American prices, we normally use in the past computer programs. You could do this in Excel with help of Visual Basic, but just to calculate in one cell, it was not possible until Excel offered us the new Lambda, the incredible Lambda with Lambda helper functions, which you can use to make the American option calculation in one cell. So let's start. Before I will describe how I did this with help of the Excel Lambda, brief description about our model which we use. My first idea was just not to do anything, but just ask ChatGPT and ask him, be so kind, calculate the option lambda for American option lambda for me. Here you can see it is the Visual Basic. Just translate Visual Basic into lambda. ChatGPT said, no problem. And it is what I got back from him. It didn't work. I tried once, twice. We exchanged many emails just to correct change. Nothing had helped. At the end, ChatGPT made very good suggestions. Why don't you do this with Visual Basic? Then I can help you immediately. I said, okay, why do you don't need to help me at all because I already have this function in Visual Basic. But it was how our discussion at this day ended, and I realized ChatGPT is not able to provide the correct syntax, is not able to solve with lambda function anything which is more complex. The simple transfer from just assign values to different variables, as is done in Visual Basic. It was no problem to do it for ChatGPT also in, not here, but this doesn't make any sense. It was no problem for ChatGPT to do it with lambda function. So it was my first interaction with ChatGPT, but since I got the appetite of doing this, I thought, okay, I will do it myself. But before I tell you what I did, just a brief explanation what is American option pricing. So American option pricing take into account that the option, not like European option, which can be only exercised at maturity, the American option can be exercised anytime before maturity. Anytime the owner or purchaser of buyer of the option decides to exercise, it can exercise. It will only do this when it is worthy for him to do it. And I will explain this with the help of binomial model when it is worthy for him to exercise earlier. So what we are using the data for share price, for exercise price, dividend, time to maturity, option life in years, volatility. And we work here now only with three steps. In the model, which I will show you later, I use 320 steps. You can use any number of steps you want, but I think with 320, we are pretty close to what is the right value. And if you use this for American option, for European option, you see you have exactly Black-Scholes value. So we are starting, we know it is today, the share price is 100, the exercise price is also 100, but at the moment this is not important. We have to create the tree. We assume that at any point of time, the option, the stock price can only go up or down. up and down. So when we have 100, it could go up to 122 or down to 81.54. Being of 81.54, and in the next period, it can go up to 100 or it could go down to 66. In the period, in the last period, if we are at 66, it can go down to 54, but it could go up to 81. And if you were before or at this point, you could go up from 150 to 184 or down to 122. So now we know in the last period, which is the stock can have these 4 different values. And based on these values, we can calculate where it is worthy for us to exercise the option. When it would be worthy to exercise the option. Option has this exercise price of 100. So anytime I get more money than 100, it is worthy to do it. So in the last period, there are 2 instances where it is worthy to exercise. When the price is 184, I could exercise and cash in $84. Or I could exercise also when the price is 122. And then I would receive $22. I'll stay at first for the European option. What it means to me, I know the values in the last period, but you know it is in 6 months. And in 6 months, if it is not at same point, I have to take account for time value of money. So put it in differently, I have to discount the future value of 84 into the present value. But I am going also one step further. I am going down the tree and creating this value based on the 2 preceding values. So as at first I go up, I went up and created two values out of 1. Now I am going back, and out of 2 values I create 1. I am using here the weighted average, and weighted, I have the probability of going down and up, and I have the value 84 and 22. I add them together, and then I have to discount them by the interest factor. I do the same here to calculate this value. I use the value of 22 and 0, both multiplied with probability factor, then added, discounted by 1 period, and I obtain 963. Now I go one step back, and I create the value of 26 based on these 2 values, 48 and 963. Weighted average, I have 26. Out of these 2 values, I have 4. And then the last calculation, I based on these 2 values with the probability again, discounted by one period, or one step by the discount factor, and I obtain the value for the European call option of 1346. If I would use the Black-Scholes model, what normally I would always do, I would have the correct value of 1235. So you see, it's not so far away. At least we went into the right direction, but please keep in mind, we were using only 3 steps, not 100, 200, 300, but just 3 steps. Now, let's go. What is the American option pricing? What is different in the American option pricing comparing to European pricing? The start is the same. We start with the same array as for European options. We ask at first the same question. Let calculated weighted average out of these 2 values multiplied with the probabilities. But then I have to ask the second question. What would be what I could get for my call option if I would exercise this now? Can I get more? Of course, in this case, I can get more. I could sell, the stock is 150, so my option value is 150.42. So this is better than 48, which I would go if I would just discount this out of 2 previous values. So now in the binomial tree, at this step, I am inputting value of 50. I am doing the same here for the next value. I am taking weighted weighted average, weighted with the probabilities, and obtain 963. I also ask whether it would be worth it to exercise earlier, but if I would exercise earlier in this case, I would only could get 100. So my option would be, the value of the option would be 0, but in this case, when I go down the tree, I have 963. So I stay with the same value what I have here in the European model. Now go one step back and do the same. Compare the average, weighted average, with the possible value which I could obtain here. You see 122 is less than a weighted average of 26. So I stay with the same, with the weighted average, and I go further down and obtain the final value of 1376. Again, I am a little bit off comparing to correct calculation with 320 steps, but at least I have the right direction. So let's go now to our model, what we use to calculate with help of Excel Lambda. I am showing you here again Visual Basic. Now the lambda calculation, I had to divide this in 2. I will explain in a moment why. I couldn't create the calculation with help of one function. I needed 2 functions. And I had also difficulties to take the values directly into the function, like you start when you normally enter something into the actual function, you either click the address of that cell or you enter the value. I was not able to do this because in this case I have both. I have the array and regular values, and somehow if I combine this together, Excel doesn't want to have the different values, just one. And I can't just enter the array. I have to enter also values which I used to create the array. So my solution to this was on each I can use I can as many sheets I want. I want to have different calculation for American call or put. I assign on the sheet, define the names. And for example, the name in the cell B2 is the name is spot. It's here in B3 is strike, and so on. So this is when I am seeing here spot. It refers to the address which is on the sheet, and I need a cell which has the name spot. I need a cell which has the name strike, and then the function can take these values out of from the spreadsheet. Then I have intermediary calculation, which I required to find how the tree has to go up and down. I need the calculation for probability to go up, probability to go down. And having this, I have to create my first array. I need the array to know where it is worth, or what is the value of the value of my of the call options at this, depending on the share prices in the last period. In order to do this, it requires a function, a lambda helper function, which is called make array. Make array, as the name says, it just makes the array. So it is all what I need. I need the array. So in order to calculate this array, I have to enter function name make array. I want the array with 4 rows, number 4, array with one column. Then I use the lambda name, and lambda use the two variables R and C. R stands for rows, C for columns, and then I can do any kind of formula my problem requires. I just use here the example. I took the pi, and I say, okay, pi should be multiplied with the row number, and I entered this formula, press enter, and you see what we received. So it is pi multiplied with 1, pi multiplied with 2, 3, 4. I have my array calculated immediately for my for American pricing. Here I needed the array of 320, so I used the number of 320, but this I am using with the next function. What I also need in this in my program, I need the second function, which is very important, index function. The index function helps me. I am taking the address of the array. Here's my, okay, sorry, doesn't like it. The address of the array, and then I tell him which cell it is, where I want to go. So number 1, I did something wrong. It doesn't like me. If I tell him to go for 2, well, whether it works, but I think at the moment I am making a mistake, but I use the second function to calculate is the index function, and we have make array and index function later to obtain the information out of the array. And for the next most important function, and I think without this function I would not be able to do it, is the sequence function. The sequence function is create the list of sequential numbers in an array, but it allows me to run with this information through the array. To do in principle kind of a loop on the loop which runs only once, but it runs at least. It do through all these numbers. And what I need not only 3, I need 320. So it runs through all my elements in the array and do some kind of calculation. What kind of calculation? What I need, when you remember, I have here my calculation. I obtained prices in the last period of the possible prices for calls for call option when it is would be exercised at price of 184 or 122, then the value would be 22 or 84. And then I'm going down this tree and calculate the weighted average, weighted probability adjusted average. And I am doing this in the out of last array, I am creating the second array. And in order to do this, I am using this kind, I am using my sequence function, which helps me to find the place where I am in the array. And then I have, funny thing, I couldn't use the max. As you can see, it was what Visual Basic was using. The higher max function worked in when I worked together with make array. This worked perfectly, but somehow it didn't work with the sequence function. It only works when I use with if. So I had, instead of max, I combine two ifs together, and okay, it works also. So I am doing one calculation now. I am coming from the last to the one before last. And then I can't bring this procedure in doing a loop. It doesn't want to loop. According to Lambda, it is not loop, it is recursion. Then the function is calling in itself again and again. It only can call itself if it doesn't find the let function before. So I have to create again one function, the same or very similar. I already have my input array, so I don't need to repeat this calculation. But I provide the same information to for the calculation, that I can make my adjustment to the array. And then I call, then really starts to repeat itself as long my array is bigger than 1. Do it again, do it again. So what are you doing again? You can see here, we started. Now this was done by the helper. We started to do it here. Then we do it again. And okay, in this case, because it's only 3 steps, I already obtained my last value. But in my program, I have to do this 320 times, and then the last value is reached, and the price is calculated. So everything done in one cell. Would be nicer if it would be just one function. Would be nicer if I would find a way to enter the information directly into the function. I'm sure at some point of time I will find it, but maybe one of you guys who is listening have the immediate solution how you could do this with one function, or with directly entering the values into the function. So in order for you to work with this, I created a spreadsheet which you can download from my Dropbox. You can go directly to the Dropbox, or you can go to this tiny URL. It's much less to enter or to copy, and you can download. You can create your account at Dropbox, but you don't need this. When you entered the link, you will be asked to enter an account, to create the account or sign up. You simply disregard this. You click no to download the file, and you have file on your computer, and you can work from there. The file from what you obtain, it is what we already mentioned. We have 2 formulas here: American call helper Okay, American call and American call helper call, which is generate the price of a call option, and then we have the second price for put option. If you need more than one formula, you have to create this on the next sheet and refer to this sheet. I described this here a little bit. What we could do, what I can show you, what is very easy to use, or to check prices depending on different factors. Here, for example, depending on volatility and depending on interest rate. I am using doing what if data table, and I have always problems here with to find the right description for whether what is row and what is a column cell. We will see whether I did this correctly now. No, I didn't. So we do it again. But you were able to see how fast the calculation was. What if data table, row input, I think it was sigma, and interest, or maybe I didn't use the interest, I used the time. Yeah, it was not mistake what is row and column, it was a mistake, it was a wrong variable which I used. I try it again. Data table, sigma. Hopefully I don't need to do it once more. But you have now, you can get idea how fast this procedure works. This is something what is difficult if you make a mistake once, you make it again and again. So I forgot already what I did before. Yeah, now this time I did it correctly. Okay, you can see that now the values depending for the call option, depending what happens to interest from 0.5 to 0.3, the impact on the call premium, and also the impact on the call premium in dependence of volatility. Higher volatility, higher premium. Okay, this was what I wanted to show you. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope that you can use it. It was something what I was so excited to do in one cell, what was not possible before, and you can now use this at in any spreadsheet, not necessarily macro-enabled spreadsheet. You don't need this anymore. And if you work with macro-enabled spreadsheets, and when you entered more than one function again and again, you notice how slow the program was. But here, the speed was very amazing. It was very, very good. So again, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found this interesting. Thank you. Bye.